Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orangewood Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. It is K and A today. Make sure you do us a solid. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, get the notifications, like ring the bell. Do all of those things that we ask you to do on a daily basis, and we will do our best to deliver the goods today as we do each and every day. Shout out and a reminder that the opening game now is only 4 days away. And Anwar and I will have the post-game coverage live on Saturday night. Whenever that game ends, I'm thinking sometime between 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night, Anwar will be up with the Night Owls talking Texas football, breaking down the season opener. Today's video dedicated to big, bad, bold predictions in 2022, team, conference, player, you name it. All that matters is it's big and bold. And Anwar, I will let you go first. Your first big, bad, bold prediction for 2022.
Well, I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but can I give you at least my season prediction? Is that somewhat because I don't know how bold it is.
Well, if you go, I feel like there's no record that you can give that's not bold because Texas fans are gonna bitch no matter what.
Well, that's true. If I went 10-2, that's bold. If I went 5-7, that's bold. And so anywhere in between is probably bold. But my bold prediction is 8-4 for the season. That's where I'm at. But maybe what's even more bolder might be where the floor is. I think the floor might be 6-6. With obviously the ceiling, maybe 9 for me. It would be the ceiling. So if you're looking for a bold thing, I'm going to go with 8-4 off the season. I'm going to give this team some, a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, which is seemingly was what we do around this time of year. The losses for me, someone's going to ask, well, what are your losses? I'll have Bama down as a loss. I'll have Oklahoma State down as a loss. K-State down as a loss, and Baylor down as a loss. Those would be my 4 ones. So somewhere in that boldness would be a prediction that Texas would beat Oklahoma was somehow in this season. I think a lot of these programs, a lot of these coaches seem to have some luck against OU in year 2 or so, or at least once they have a chance to kind of get ready for that thing. But for me, semi-bold, but I'm going to go kind of 8-4. So it's like maybe medium bold.
My first bold prediction is I've been saying for pretty much a couple of months now that I think the difference between first place and 5th or 6th place in the Big 12 might be as little as 2 games. Therefore, I'm just going to go for it. The first ever 4-way tie for first place in the Big 12 at the end of the season. I've got Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Texas.
That's bold.
All going 6-3 during conference play, which would mean it goes down to weird tiebreakers, and the first of which I believe would be best record among those 4 against each other. I don't know that Texas does real well in a round of 4 that way, but I've got a 4-way tie for first place in the Big 12, first ever. I'm just imagining the hysterics and the politicking for who should be in the Big 12 championship game. And in the end, it'll come down to little things like which team beat which team in early October when nobody even thought this thing was a glimmer in the eye. Prediction number 1.
Too bad Bob Bowlesby is in here because he'd probably give everyone a championship at that point, right? If it was a 4-way, you're like, everyone's a champion in the Big 12, the I-9 of championship trophies. So, okay, so wait, if you're gonna go that far, so if you're gonna go 4-way tie,
yes.
Who makes the Big 12 championship game in this 4-way tie? Or are you just stopping at?
I'm going to say Baylor beats Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. That in the end, those 2 teams will come out with tiebreaker advantages and play the championship game.
Wow. That is bold. That's much bolder than my prediction. So you probably at 6-3, then you've got everyone pretty much in a 8 to 10 win range, somewhere in there. Is for the most part, this big conference would be it. Okay.
All those teams will either go 3-0 or 2-1 in non-conference plays. So add that to 6-3, and I've got all four of those teams between 8 and 9 wins.
And then who did you say your 3 losses were for Texas?
Well, in conference play,
yeah.
I think that Oklahoma State is an obvious one. Mm-hmm. I'm picking them to lose at Kansas State, right? Because some of this is hard. It's like predicting the random Texas will have a loss on its schedule that nobody saw coming because it happens every year. I think that one might be in Lubbock.
Yes, it is.
First conference road game period of the year. Texas Tech will be fired up. That game a year ago was obviously a disaster for Texas Tech. Makes me think that they'll be more ready for that game than a lot of Texas fans aren't thinking about that game at all. And it is the third game in a back-to-back trio of Alabama, UTSA, and Texas Tech that will, I think, get a lot of attention from the teams that they're playing. So I think that one might be the sneak-up game of the year. I'm with you. I think Texas does beat Oklahoma. I actually have them beating Baylor to end the season. That allows them to finish in that I had them winning the last 3 games of the season, ending hot in November, which means at one point I think they're 5-4 as a team. And then I think they roll off a 3-game winning streak at the end of the year to go 8-4 and 6-3 in conference play.
That's interesting. You know, it's interesting when you talked about Texas Tech, though. What I was thinking about a couple other aspects of that one catch. One, you talked about the revenge factor for Texas Tech and what that means for them after just getting their asses handed to them last year. Obviously, they got a new coach with Joey McGuire, so you know that they got different leadership there. But there's also another part of Quinn Ewers kind of, rejecting Texas Tech and Texas Tech feeling like they may have had a shot to get him after Ohio State. So a little bit of the revenge factor that goes into that. And then Quinn's first game on the road at Texas Tech, having the tortilla shells thrown at you and all the pageantry there. And I think it's fair to say at this point, Texas Tech seemingly just hates Texas. And I know that's probably always existed, but, having Chris Beard come here really didn't help as far as that hostility is concerned. And there's other teams there that, dislike Texas. But I'm talking about from a hate standpoint, I feel like Red Raider fans are really on like the seeing blood kind of thing. So I think you're totally correct as far as like upset alert kind of thing. Yeah, just that's a game they got to be careful.
The earlier game that kickoff is, the better for Texas. If that's like a 6 or 7 o'clock kickoff time, I think that plays into the Lubbock mystique at night. And sometimes it doesn't go that way. Sometimes Texas just shows up and does their thing. But that game's been more 50-50 in recent years, really in the last decade or so, than most Texas fans would dare for it to want to be, although last year clearly not the case. Is it time for one of your predictions?
Sure. I'll give you one of my bold predictions. I'm trying to think. I got a bold prediction for you. You ready?
Yes.
I had this in my Sunday column. Ethan Burke. I think he records multiple sacks by in the Texas OU game. I'm going to give him 2 in that game. And I think by the end of the season, we are talking about Ethan Burke as one of the best pass rushers on the team. Now, I don't know what that means as far as the number of sacks are concerned. Like, you want me to put a number to it? I can. But I'm buying heavy on Ethan Burke in the preseason. We do know that there once was a depth chart that existed. And in that depth chart, as you've pointed out online, Catch, Steve Sarkisian did mention that Ethan Burke was in the 2 deep. And, you and I were pretty high on him coming out of Westlake. We liked his production. I love his feet as far as a former lacrosse player. He's a guy that at the end of the season, maybe we're looking at, potentially 4 or 5 sacks or so, maybe 5 or more. Maybe 5. I'm going to give him a 5. I'm going to give him the adrenaline of OU, but I'm going to go Ethan Burke, kind of having a breakout game versus OU.
I have an Ethan Burke bold prediction that I made in my Sunday column that he will finish the season with 6 sacks. And since you took my bold prediction, I'll just go with a different one. Bold prediction number 2, not including Ethan Burke finishing with 6 sacks. I'm just throwing that out there into the universe. Texas will finish the year with 4 freshman All-Americans.
Oh! Okay.
Kelvin Banks,
Uh-huh.
DJ Campbell, Ethan Burke.
Man, if this was some Kool-Aid, I'd just be
Is
like
that
a
crazy?
Kool-Aid party, right?
I mean, the real one for me, because most times with offensive linemen, it's a matter of did they play enough games? I mean, we've seen the likes of Patrick Vahe be named freshman All-American because he played 12 games at Texas, and sometimes that's enough. So I feel like the offensive linemen were easy. The question, and I've got Ethan Burke with 6 sacks. So he would fit into a category, I think, at the end of the year that he would make it. The question is there another freshman or redshirt freshman quarterback poised to be better and have a better year than Quinn Ewers? That might be my riskiest call of all of the 4 freshman All-American that I'm predicting coming out of this season.
It's still a good, you know what, though? Well, you're saying Quinn Ewers, you're saying, give me your 4, you get Kelvin Banks, yes.
DJ Campbell.
Uh-huh.
Ethan Burke.
Now you'll go DJ Campbell over Cole Hudson at this moment.
I think at the end of the year, DJ Campbell will be the starter. I think there's a question of whether or not both of those guys are starting at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think what separates Cole Hudson from DJ Campbell right now is that Cole Hudson has been on campus a little longer. But I think DJ Campbell is a superior long-term player. The cream will rise to the crop, and I think that by the end of September he's starting.
Okay, all right. I can definitely say that. I think though, Catch, I think you what you touched on does make sense. There is a potential for all 3 of those guys by the end of the season that they're in the starting lineup, whether it's the last 4 games or whatever the case may be. There might be a shift because they're high. I mean, on Cole Hudson, that seems to be the guy that is, outside of Kelvin Banks and Campbell. That seems to be the kind of the talk of the town as far as Hudson is concerned. So there could be a shift at some point, depending on how the season's going, where you just say, you know what, all right, it's time to learn and grow with these freshman offensive linemen. Let's get these guys ready, get some good reps, try to win, this year, but also build for next year. So go from there. All right, it's your turn. It's your turn, right? Because
I just did the 4 freshman All-American.
Okay, I've got another one for you. I don't know if this is bold, but when I start thinking about who's going to lead the team in interceptions, buy me some Jaron Thompson stock, Catch.
Oh,
give me some Jaron Thompson. The kind of like a Deshaun Elliott, reformed kind of thing, where you start seeing the safety getting there and making some plays. I'm going to be conservative, so I know it's somewhat bold, but the bold prediction is Jaron Thompson leads this team in interceptions. I've in my column I wrote 3. Wouldn't be surprised if he had 4, but Jaron Thompson as the interception leader. That's the guy I'm thinking about. They're going to be playing man coverage, Catch, with those cornerbacks. That's going to give Jaron Thompson the ability, to come over as that safety and make a play, make a good read. Jaron Thompson is the guy I got my eye on.
I like it. I didn't see that one coming at all. You hit me with a left cross on that one. I was like, I'm waiting for that punch to come, and then it was bam, Jaron Thompson. I like it. Are you ready for my next big bad bold prediction?
I love it. This is going great.
I had to take a swig of water to prepare myself to say this.
Okay.
Jordan Whittington stays healthy the entire season. Oh!
Well, first of all,
how's that for bold?
First of all, let's knock on wood the entire time.
I'm not even knocking on wood. This is going to be a Jordan Whittington season. He's been waiting for it. I think last year was really kind of fluky. You know, you think back to the beginning of his career, and he was dealing with that sports hernia issue that just never did get right, and they had to go in. If I'm not mistaken, there were like multiple procedures, and in the end, it was just complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets hurt a year ago, but these things aren't all related. I think this is the year that he puts it all together. He's going to take a dent, I think, potentially out of Xavier Worthy's totals like numbers. I don't know that this is a year where Xavier Worthy catches Isaiah and Xavier, for some reason, are names that I constantly mix up in my head. I don't know that Xavier Worthy catches 100 balls.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will, and you've mentioned this before, I think his yards per catch are going to be among the best in the Big 12. I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. But I think Jordan Whittington may be a volume guy. His ability to play outside, inside, be moved around. He's an older player. I just got a feeling that this is the year that he finally puts it together and he stays healthy all season long. A prediction, a big, bold prediction that some Texas fans would tell you is an absolute impossibility. I'm saying this is the year it happens.
You know, Catch, not because he was an Orange Blood sponsored athlete at one point, but just because he's such a good guy, just a genuine guy. You've talked to him. I've talked to him. We had him on our channel for, about a year or so. I hope it for him. Like I honestly do. Like that's one of those, like, man, year after year after year. And, you've heard the stories about, okay, he did a lot of heavy lifting from the time he was a child. And as you know, when you're as a child and you're developing and you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, it often leads to injuries in the future. And that's one of the things, like Jordan kind of said, like this offseason has been really more about like the, flexible and being mobile and all those kind of things, as opposed to just being bulk. Now, the bulk and the strength helped him to get to Texas, but to preserve him and have him to be healthy, it looks like there's a little bit of a switch in his training regimen. And so for him, I definitely hope that thing happens for him, because he's really genuinely a good guy. All right. I got one for you too. I think this is bold, but I also think it might be positive in a sense too. Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
All right. Gary Patterson will not be coaching the University of Texas at any point this season. That's my bold prediction. Pete K, I have faith in you that they're not going to have to go to the bullpen, call for the lefty, until have GP come on out. I look at Gary Patterson, Catch, as a guy that after this season, there's going to be a contingent of coaches who are going to be talked about for certain positions, and certain coaching positions. And I think Gary Patterson sitting in the catbird seat at this moment. He doesn't have to move. He doesn't have to do anything that he doesn't want to. And so, yes, if he just wants to hang around and be the helper that he is at this moment, feel free to. But I also think if Gary wants to go and get a head coaching job somewhere, state of Texas or whatever, I think there'll be hot names after this season, right? I think Tom Herman's name will resurface. There's enough time that passed.
Hey, Onward, who gets the job first, Tom Herman or Gary Patterson?
I mean, they're both banking right now, right? They're both getting paid by their former institutions, and neither one is in a hurry to get a job. I'm going to say Tom, just because we know going into the TV thing is the step that a coach is usually taking to get back into coaching. So with the TV is kind of the first step. So I'm going to say Tom will be the guy, only because we know he's angling for it. I don't know if Gary is cool just doing what he's doing right now and then just enjoying himself, being here in Texas, in Austin, and everything to that effect. And maybe the time to come when Gary says he wants to get back into it. But for my bold prediction, Catch, I don't think by week 6, we're talking about this guy's fired. Gary Patterson's in. Like I don't even know if Sarkisian would even want to pull that card, because we know when you start doing that, especially midseason, it just starts looking chaotic. So that's my bold prediction. GP is still here, but he's not having to step in because his defense has failed.
I'm going to go slightly negative on my last big bold prediction.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, so far, I've been super positive.
You have.
I've got Texas tied for first place in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I've got them with 4 freshman All-Americans. I've got Jordan Whittington staying healthy all season long. This one's not quite so positive.
That's okay. I'll end it on a positive note. Go ahead.
Bijan does not make it to New York as a Heisman finalist. And I don't know how close he'll actually be. I know he starts off with really good odds, but the reality is, if you're going to be a running back on an average football team, and with no disrespect to Texas, but 8-4 and 6-3 in the Big 12 is fairly average. Your numbers and really your usage rate have to be crazy good. Crazy good. When Ricky Williams won the Heisman in 1998 in an 11-game schedule, 12 if you include the bowl game, he carried the ball, not total touches. He carried the ball 361 times. And that's how you get to over 2,000 yards in a season. You average 6 yards a carry. You get the ball 361 times. His backup that year was a kid named Hodges Mitchell, who in the next 2 seasons rushed for 1,000 yards in consecutive seasons. He was the second leading rusher in attempts on that team with 23. The thing is, we know that Texas is going to share the ball more, that Roschon's going to get touches, that there are receivers in this offense that we're talking about catching up between 7 and 100 passes. Really, a couple of receivers that if they stay healthy, we're talking about having that type of volume. I don't think this team's going to have enough team success. And I don't know that Bijan's going to get the usage that would allow for a guy like him to get in New York. I think he's going to, I think he could end up being the Doak Walker Award winner.
That's what I was just going to ask you. What about Doak Walker, though?
I think he's a guy that is probably a front runner for first-team All-American. But the Heisman really is an award for quarterbacks on great teams. And if you're not on a team that's not in the playoff, you have to just have ridiculous stats to be in New York City for a Heisman like top 3 or 4. The only way that changes is if there's a bad year at the quarterback position. But this 2022 feels like it's going to be a really good year at the quarterback position when you consider that Bryce Young's going to be in this thing again, that CJ Stroud is going to be in this thing again. I mean, to me, that's 2 of the Heisman finalists right there, barring injury. And I just don't know how much wiggle room there really will be for running backs with very good, maybe even great numbers, but not all-time historic numbers that play on fairly mediocre teams. And if I'm right about the way the Texas schedule goes, and they're 5-4 and 3-3 in conference play through 6 or through 9 games, the rest of the country really won't be paying a lot of attention when they win those final 3 games in November to get to 8-4 and 6-3 in conference play. Texas will be a little out of sight, out of mind. The way that changes, though, there is a caveat to this.
Okay.
If he throws up 200 all-purpose yards against Alabama in week 2, he's got a chance to be in a place where his name is constantly thought of in that discussion for the first month to 6 weeks of the season. It'll be up to him to be able to maintain that. But he does legitimately have a platform game early in the season that if he goes bonkers, forget about whether Texas wins or loses, but if he were to go bonkers, I think that maybe that gives him enough staying power to make it through the first couple of weeks of October before voters start to reevaluate, okay, just how good are his numbers, and is he really making a difference on a team that is 5-2, 5-3, 6-4? I mean, 6-2. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Catch, that you've got to be, the best player on the best team to win the Heisman. Like, that's usually just how it goes. It's hard to snatch it out of a quarterback's hand. It just realistically is. So if you're a position player, you've got to be, something that people almost view as a little bit of a generational thing. So, Catch, I don't necessarily think what you said was that crazy. Of all the crazy things you could have said, Catch, that was probably the least least effective, at least damaging, or anything to that effect. I do have a question for you, though, from a prediction standpoint. At the end of the year, the question is not who's the better player. I'm just talking from a pure statistical standpoint and usage rate. Does Bijan finish with more rushing yards than Deuce Vaughn in the Big 12? Or actually, I guess overall.
That'll be really close. I'm gonna say no. I think Kansas State's gonna run Deuce Vaughn into the ground. And I don't think that about Texas. I think Sark treats me as a guy that thinks about his players and their future NFL careers. They never did it at USC. They didn't do it with Reggie Bush. They didn't do it at Alabama. They're typically not guys that at the end of the year, I always point to the year that you had DeMarco Murray with the Cowboys in fantasy football. Mm-hmm. And it was the last year of his deal. And it was clear the Cowboys weren't going to re-sign him. And they were just like, well, you can just touch the ball 75 times a game. We don't care.
Yes.
I think Kansas State will run Deuce Vaughn like that. And I just don't think that Texas will treat, and I don't mean that as like a slap in the face at Kansas State. They have fewer options than Texas does, who they're going to want to get Roshan into the game to get some work. They've got guys in Jaden Blue and Jonathan Brooks and even Keelan Robinson who they want to get into the game to get some workload. They're legitimately 5 deep at running back. And I don't know that Kansas State is that. And so that's why at the end of the year, I think Bijan will have more national juice than Deuce Vaughn, but Deuce Vaughn might actually lead the Big 12 in actual rushing.
From a prediction standpoint, when Texas plays Kansas State, how often will we hear that Deuce Vaughn was this non-recruited kid from Round Rock that very few people wanted, and here he is doing such special? Like, how many times will we hear that in the broadcast from a bold prediction standpoint that Deuce Vaughn was overlooked as a high school recruit?
Well, we know that that'll be in the dozens. I wonder if at the end of the year, Kansas State is having a mediocre year and Deuce Vaughn's having an All-American year. A, does he go pro? And B, K-State fans won't want to hear this now, but now that the likes of Jordan Addison have had monster years and then transferred to more high-profile destinations, Jamar Gibbs is another. I wonder if they're one of a couple of choices that he had. 3 choices. He can come back to K-State for another year. He can go pro, or he can maximize on what may be a monster season, put his name in the portal, and have almost every school in the country trying to whisper sweet nothings into his ear. And by that point, he may deserve that. Like, it's the thing that I said about him at the very beginning of the year when K-State fans got mad at me. That guy, to me, is too good to be wasting away on a mediocre Big 12 team that's not playing for things. And the thing that K-State fans then turn around and would say about Bijan is the same thing. Is that guy too good to be wasted away on mediocre? Yes. Bijan is the type of player that deserves to be playing in the biggest of games. And it will be one of the real disappointing things about his Texas career if he is a 3 or 4 year player with all of that talent and really never has a chance to play in a game of real significance. So, you could say the same thing about Bijan that you could about the kid from K-State whose name, for whatever reason, I'm just blanking on right this second. But yeah, I think that how did that happen? How have I blanked on a name? It's too early in the morning to be recording videos. Yes, Deuce Vaughn. Okay, so is that the final prediction of the video, or do?
Yeah, no. I've got one more, but I also got a general overall question too. Okay.
All
right. So one of my last bold predictions is a name that you're hearing a little bit now that you'll know a lot more of at the end of the year will be Savion Red. Like I will stay with this one, but once again, I was talking to Quinn Ewers. I think it was on Monday of this week, and that name came up again as a playmaker. Every time I turn around, someone is mentioning Savion's name and his playmaking ability, his pass catching ability. He's got guys in front of him, but he seems like a guy that Steve Sarkisian is going to find a way to get on the field. We know injuries happen. We know guys get banged up for a play here or there. There's rotations, all that kind of stuff. My belief is by the time the season's over, by the time we're doing a regular season wrap-up show in early December, Savion Red will be a name that we're talking about and say, man, not too bad of a season for the young man.
I'm going to sell that. It wasn't really a buy or sell question. I just don't think at the end of the day he's going to have – my bold prediction would be that he won't be that guy. I don't think he catches more than 25 passes this season, which that's 2 per game, which is actually not a bad number for a true freshman wide receiver coming in. I just don't know that will be enough that amongst all of the names that we will be talking about, we haven't mentioned Ja'Tavion Sanders. We haven't mentioned Tariq Milton in this entire video as guys. We could just as easily have bold predictions about those guys. I just don't know that Savion Red. I think the Savion Red prediction may be monstrous for next year when Jordan Whittington is gone and Tariq Milton is gone, and suddenly it's Xavier Worthy. And who do you trust to be a playmaker among the guys in the backup? I think Savion Red's real breakout year is a year away. But I like where your head is. I don't dismiss Savion Red as a guy that's going to be a real factor on the offense in time. I just think that this year, I wonder if injuries occur, all bets are off. I mean, Tariq Milton misses any time and suddenly Savion Red is your starting slot receiver, all bets are off. But barring Tariq Milton losing his job due to injury, I think that won't happen. But again, I like the left field nature of the call. Can I give you one more?
Yeah, give me one more, and then I've got a question for you as well. So, and that'll be the last that I have.
I think that when we look at, I think there won't be another real breakout player on the defense. I don't know who, I don't know that this season's going to end with Texas having an all Big 12 defensive player that we're not already talking about, right? So DeMarvion Overshown by himself, and I don't know who the other guy is. I want to say Deshaun Jameson, but last year still makes me nervous. I don't know if I believe in any of the DBs yet on a huge level. I think this Texas defense will be good enough, but not good enough if you know what I mean. Okay, that wasn't really a huge prediction. Give me your question.
That's okay. I'm still gonna stay with Jalen Ford until proven otherwise. Okay, so this is a combo question. This is the last thing I have going outside of Texas. Here we go. Two things outside of Texas, but within our circle here. Okay, does Nebraska beat Oklahoma this year? Especially based off what we saw in the season opener. And does A&M beat Alabama 2 years in a row?
No and no.
Okay. That's all.
Yeah.
Just want you on the record on it.
I mean, Nebraska sucks, and A&M's not going at Alabama and winning that game. We pointed to that game in College Station a year ago as it'd be hyped. That would be the biggest game in the history of the A&M football program and the way that it will be treated. And it kind of played out that way. The atmosphere was crazy. And then after they got the win, they weren't quite – it wasn't Alabama. Alabama played down a little bit. I think Alabama's going to put a spanking on both of the Texas teams. Okay. By the end of the year, they'll be making state of Texas state title rings.
Okay. Now, but
did you know that Mac Brown did that one year? I think it was in 2003.
No.
They didn't win the Big 12. They didn't win their bowl game. They didn't beat Oklahoma, but they made rings that said state champions on it because they beat A&M and Tech.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That happened. Matter of fact, the only reason why I'm thinking of that is someone posted a link on Orange Bloods to an estate sale. And in this estate sale, there was Texas memorabilia all over it from Larry Falk, the former equipment guy that worked for the program for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And he has the 2003 state championship ring. Let me tell you something. 20 years ago, it did not play well on the internet.
I can imagine if there ever was listen, here's some orange slices for you after the game. That trophy sounds like orange slices after the soccer game.
Imagine getting like a big ass ring with diamonds all over it. State champions. And you know what though? They won like 10 plus games that season. Like we're laughing at it. And yet it's the kind of season that right now Texas fans would dream of. Look, here's what we want. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and in the comments section, give us your biggest, your baddest, your boldest prediction. Who knows? We might even do like a follow-up show later in the year where we go back and talk about not just our big predictions, but what were the ones in the comments. It might make for a fun show. But for myself and Anwar Richardson, you guys keep watching the channel. We'll keep producing the content. Until next time, you guys be good to each other. Later.